And we come now to 0 hour 30 Universal Time. In the news at this hour, United States officials say 3 people being held at the American Navy base in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, apparently killed themselves. The base commander, Navy Admiral Harry Harris, said the 3 hanged themselves using their clothing. Medical workers were unable to save the 2 Saudis and a Yemeni. Admiral Harris said he believed the deaths were planned and organized by others being held in the same prison area. Each victim had been at Guantanamo for about 4 years. They had been refusing to eat and were fed by force. The United Nations Committee Against Torture called last month for the American prison to be closed. The United States has denied bad treatment of the prisoners at Guantanamo. Attacks have killed at least 24 people across Iraq. The victims include 9 people killed in 2 separate bombings in Baghdad. In other news, American experts arrived in the nation to examine the body of Abu Musab al-Zarqawi, leader of al-Qaeda in Iraq. United States General William Caldwell said in Baghdad an examination would be performed on the resistance leader to end any questions about how he died. In the United States on Saturday, President Bush said terrorists and rebels will try to prove they can carry out attacks without Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has set a July 26th date for a vote on establishing a Palestinian state next to Israel. Palestinians will vote on a document that would indirectly recognize Israel. It is based on a document written by Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. Hours before the vote was announced, militant members of Hamas fired rockets at Israel. No injuries were reported. On Friday, the militant part of Hamas ended a 16-month truce after Israeli shelling killed 7 Palestinian civilians. 3 militants also were reported killed. The chief United Nations investigator into the death of the former Lebanese Prime Minister has asked for another year to finish his work. Belgian state lawyer Serge Brammertz called for more time to produce a report for the UN Secretary-General. The investigation into Rafik Hariri's death was to end on Thursday. China has agreed to provide a low-interest loan to Burma. Burmese and Chinese bank officials signed the agreement on Friday in Rangoon. A Chinese embassy official reportedly said the loan was for $200 million. The purpose of the loan was not announced. The ruling party in Ukraine says talks to establish a coalition government have been suspended. A spokesman for the political party of President Viktor Yushchenko says the parties cannot agree on who should be parliamentary speaker. Ukraine's constitution says Parliament has until June 27th to form a coalition. In related news, Mr. Yushchenko said former Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko has a right to be renominated to head the government. You are listening to the news in VOA Special English. Activists for victims of terrorists have marched in Madrid. They were protesting the Spanish government's plan to hold peace talks with the Basque separatist group ETA. The Association of Victims of Terrorism marched with support from the conservative Popular Party. The Popular Party lost elections in the 2004 to the Socialist Party of Prime Minister José Luis Rodríguez Zapatero. Mr. Zapatero agreed to talks with ETA after the group declared a permanent ceasefire in March. A date to start the talks could be set for later this month. The temporary government of Somalia has increased security in the temporary capital of Baidoa. Local reports say the town was quiet on Saturday. On Friday, gun battles between guards loyal to President Abdullahi Yusuf Ahmed and local groups killed at least 10 people. The clashes there were not linked to fighting between Islamic and militant leaders in Mogadishu. On Monday, Islamic armed groups took control of Mogadishu after 4 months of battling with militant leaders. About 350 people were killed in the fighting. At the FIFA World Cup in Germany, England has defeated Paraguay 1-0. The only point came when the Paraguayan team captain accidentally scored a goal for England. Earlier on Saturday, Trinidad and Tobago and Sweden played to a 0-0 tie. Trinidad and Tobago played most of the second half with only 10 men. And a horse named Jazil has won the Belmont Stakes race in Belmont, New York. The race is the third in the series of horse races called the Triple Crown. Jazil pulled away from the horse that finished second, named Bluegrass Cat, near the end of the race. Sun River finished third. The ruling family of Dubai owns Jazil. And so briefly now, here again is the major news of this hour. United States officials say 3 people held at the American military base in Cuba apparently killed themselves. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has set a July 26th date for a vote on establishing a Palestinian state next to Israel. And the chief United Nations investigator into the death of the former Lebanese Prime Minister has asked for another year to finish his work. So ends the news in VOA Special English.